Support everything we do at MWP News by visiting co-fi.com/MWP News. Every donation helps us stay independent. For breaking entertainment news, reviews, and more, check out MWPnews.com. If you love games, head over to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@MWPNewsGaming for reviews and gameplay. Links for all of this will be in the show notes, as well as links to the other podcasts. Thank you for your continued support. Good afternoon by the time this goes up, but it's going to lead to some weird things on the feed. And welcome to... I'm probably going to schedule it to go up earlier, than real time, just that way it's not too on top of each other when I do finally get around to edit this and post it. Welcome to Beware of Spoilers. I am Adam. But I can't set the time to be earlier or previously than when it happened, so I can always set this to be 9 a.m. today, even if it doesn't go up till later. Just so there's not two episodes right on top of each other going up. I always hate that. I am Adam. I am coming to you from my very gas-scented car because there was an incident yesterday at work, and I was parked next to someone who had a gas leak, and I guess it got into the filter of my car. The smell permeated the filter for my central air, and now my entire car smells like gas, which is something. All of that is to say, we're here today to talk about Peacemaker, Season 2, Episode 1, and I forgot how much happened, or how much of what happened in Peacemaker Season 1, because, again, this whole thing with taking multiple years between shows, between seasons of a show on streaming. I know that I don't understand. We had this down to a science. We had the idea of we get a show done, we get it all out, and then the next year you'll get another season of it. We had this down pat. It was 3 years between Peacemaker and season 2. That's a long ass time. But the point is, the show's out now. The show's here. And I think that this show has a lot of work to do to establish how this is going to carry over from the DC EU into the DC universe. Because that's the weird thing, is that they're playing with the multiverse. They're clearly playing with the multiverse. I mean, we start out, and Chris is taking Eagly out so he can go to the bathroom. So he doesn't do it in the house, but he doesn't want to go outside because it's cold in January. So instead, he takes him into the pocket dimension that is going to be where that way he can just go and shit there. And he goes out and he sees his neighbor, hey, how you doing? So he's in this pocket dimension. And he's looking around, and Eagly goes off, and he can't find him. And Eagly ends up going to the wrong version of his reality. And they go over there, and it's a door identical to theirs. And he goes in, and it's a world where his brother didn't die, and him and his father isn't, the Red Dragon, and they're having this, they're having the whole, he has that moment, he leaves, and because he sees that. And I think what this season does well is it does kind of the thing that The Flash does in Season 2. If you recall, this episode ends, or a good amount of this episode takes place with him going to, him going into this alternate universe where his brother's still alive, and he and his dad and his brother have this happy life. And what ends up happening there is, he sees what could have been. And what this is basically what happens at the end of season 2 into season 3 of The Flash. It's, I don't agree with the decision he makes. This is a bad decision for him to go and go back in time and stop Thawne from killing his parents. It's a bad idea for him to go to this alternate universe. But I understand why he's doing it. And it's like, that's what the whole episode is it's laying the groundwork for why the team from season 1 is so miserable. And I think they even do a better job of it, than Flashpoint did. So Flash went on CW. So it's a really interesting question that they leave themselves with, is this idea of everyone's worse off because of what they did in season 1. Harcourt can't get a job in the intelligence community because Waller, despite being under congressional hearings, is still blackballing her. You have, what's her name? Is her daughter still can't get a job, or is still trying to start her own business that's not working. Chris is trying to prove himself to be a hero and prove himself to be the superhero that he knows he is. So he tries to join the Justice Gang. And it's a really interesting kind of approach. Now, my question is going to be, because one of the things, they're clearly playing with the idea that he's traversing the multiverse. That's clearly what this is, because he kills this other version of himself from the other universe, and clearly he's, clearly they're dealing with the multiverse here. And that's obviously where this is going. The issue with this is, how do they gel the differences between season 1 and season 2? Because, in the Previously On, the Previously On is not something you should skip, because the Previously On has a few important tidbits, which is, there are things that are different from what happened in season 1. And I don't think I've ever seen a show do this. The idea that, the Previously On is not actually what we've seen before. Because they have the jokes that he makes about Aquaman in the original are now about Green Lantern, and about how he got sick on Green Lantern's flying, green magic carpet, and Green Lantern liked it instead of it being Aquaman fucks fish. And then at the end, when at the end of season 1, when the Justice League shows up, it's not the Justice League anymore, it's the Justice Gang. And instead of it being the Flash and Aquaman who he's talking to, who are physically there, it's Hawkgirl and Green Lantern. And the point of that is, okay, we are now in this alternate universe. It's not changing season 1, but we are now here with this difference. So, is it possible, and I think that this is going to be the interesting thing that could end up happening, is it possible that this is the wrong universe? In that thing back when they do the very beginning of the episode, with him going into the the closet that has the pocket dimension, and he goes back to and he goes back to his universe, quote unquote. Is it possible that he fucked up? And I think that is not outside the realm of possibility. And the universe that he's in is one that's very similar, but he remembers the Justice Gang and doesn't remember the Justice League. That's the really weird thing about all of this, is that it's it's possible that I'm just overthinking it, but also Gunn said he would explain, or this season would explain what the differences are and how that happened. So maybe I'm not overthinking it. But I think one of the things that this show does really well is selling you on how low Chris is when he makes the decision to go into the universe where his life is perfect. And then the scene of him and Robert Patrick and David Denman, Roy from The Office, Like, that scene is just, there's a fucking thing flying around me. It's just perfect. And I think it's the thing that, like, and then when they leave and go to bed, and he's at that moment where he says to his brother, like, I love you, and the brother's like, oh, you're drunk, I love you too. And it's like, there's a moment where it's like, they are a happy family. And he sees that what could have been, and the fear of, like, the realization that, like, oh, and it's not that because of me. I buy that. And I think that John Cena does a great job of selling that, which is something that's, kind of more than I would have thought from him. And that's just this great moment in this episode. And I think the other interesting thing is, too, it's like I saw there was an article I read where it was like people on Reddit were speculating about how they're going to get Lex out of jail. And it's like, well, the general public doesn't know that Lex was behind the Pocket Universe. All they have is Superman's word. And do they trust Superman based on the video from Superman that shows Superman's parents saying he's out there to, they send him to Earth to conquer us. And it's just like, well, I think this episode kind of contradicts that, because the scene we get with Rick Flag Sr., is, that's the other thing too, is that very specifically also Rick Flag Jr. is still dead in this universe. And we've talked about the weird continuity of it all that kind of exists within this world, like, but before I go off on that, like, the idea that, like, he says, like, yeah, the incident in Metropolis with Luthor, is the thing that, we don't want another one of that to happen. So they're monitoring him because of that. And also because he's mad that, Rick Flag, Rick Flag killed his son. So all of that said, this asshole behind me in the truck, like, you can sit here and I can't go any faster because there's someone in front of me going slow. So all of that said, we have this, this show happen. And, oh wait, that's where I was going. Sorry, I was filibustering when I remember where I was going. The interesting thing is the weird continuity of this, where it's like, this is Rick Flag Sr. He was briefly in Superman. He was a major character in Creature Commandos. Creature Commandos is very much a sequel to Suicide Squad, or The Suicide Squad, which is very much a sequel to Suicide Squad from 2016, which features Ben Affleck's Batman, and directly is a sequel to Batman v Superman, because the whole thing happens because Superman is dead. So I want to see them in this show untangle that a little bit. And I think to an extent, I think that DC has a better handle of the difference between streaming and movies than Marvel did. And I think that part of that comes from the fact that Gunn isn't an idiot. Gunn saw what happened with Marvel, and they're like, all right, well, we're just going to, we're not going to do that. It was a mistake to try and make both these things equal. We're not going to do that. It's like, this is just fleshing out the universe. If you want to see this, you can. The characters will go back and forth, but we're not going to make it where you have to watch Peacemaker to understand Supergirl or something like that. It's just, we have Hawkgirl. Hawkgirl is played by Isabella Merced. She, she's going to show up, here. It's like, oh, okay, well, Sean Gunn plays Maxwell Lord. He's going to show up here. Nathan Fillion plays Guy Gardner. Well, here he is. Like, they're not going to recast these characters between them, but you also don't need to have, you don't need to have watched this show to understand the next movie. It's just kind of like the side adventures of these characters. And I think that's a better way to do it, rather than being like, you need to watch WandaVision to understand Multiverse of Madness. You need to have watched Ms. Marvel and WandaVision to understand, to understand that other one, to understand the Marvels. Like, it's just like, okay, well, whatever, move on. So, all of that said, it's just a house, this is a horsefly, medium-sized one at that. So all of that said, I'd like to see this show untangle that, because this is not something that you need to watch. You don't need to watch Peacemaker to understand the next thing. So you could take the time to sit here and be like, okay, well, here's how we're going to untangle this continuity for you. Like, because very much so, it's like the roots of the DCU, as they are now, are tangled with the roots of, with the remnants of the DCEU. And I think there's a non-zero chance that at the end of this 10-year plan, there is, I don't think they go into Crisis on Infinite Earths immediately. I think that the smart move might be Doomsday Clock. I think that what we can look to for what we're in right now is that this is Rebirth. Like, the DCU is DC Rebirth to an extent. It's like, oh, everyone's showing up now, everything's happening like that. But why? Why is it happening? And I think in a world where it's like, yeah, maybe the Rorschach of that is who's showing up is is Peacemaker. Or maybe there's someone else. Maybe it is Harley Quinn. Maybe it is like something like that. And I think the interesting thing is like if they sit here and they do that moment where it's like, yeah, Dr. Manhattan's the bad guy. That would be a really interesting thing. And then especially so if we see, and I think there's a non-zero chance this happens, I think Grant comes back as the Flash. But we'll see. But I think this show is going to lay a lot of groundwork for that. It's like, I have a feeling when all is said and done, when we're getting to the end of this first phase of the DCEU, whenever it is, which even like this could be phase 1. When we get to the end of phase 1 of the DCEU and we have our answers about what this multiverse is and how it works and what happened, Peacemaker could be Loki. And if Peacemaker is Loki, then what does that mean for, the show as a whole? And I think that that's something that could be kind of interesting. And it could be interesting to see John Cena in that role for like, hey, this is laying out how the multiverse is going to work. This is laying out how all of this is going to work. And we'll see what ends up happening there. But again, that's just me speculating. I don't know anything. I think that like if this is building towards Doomsday Clock, like that's like the writing on the wall is kind of like they're doing Rebirth, because Rebirth was this reboot that happened after the New 52, and it was like, if we consider the Snyderverse, the New 52, which is not an improper analogy, I don't think, because I think that like both were not very well received. It was a reboot designed to get people in, and a lot of people didn't like it. It really, it had its fan base, but it wasn't, it didn't set the world on fire. And all it did was serve to, reboot the universe. The idea that like Rebirth is going to be this thing where it's like we're going to explain the continuity shifts, we're going to explain what caused all that. And I think if that's what they're doing, that would be an interesting way to start this out. And I think that also is an interesting first Crisis level event, because like DC has the Crisis level events. Crisis on Infinite Earths, Final Crisis, Infinite Crisis, all of these, Flashpoint Paradox, these events that take place on a multiversal scale that end up shifting the timeline and altering the timeline and rebooting the universe. I believe there are 7 of them. Multiversity. All of that said, I think that this is a smart first one to do, because it's like we're playing with the fact that it's being rebooted, which is something that it appears Marvel's doing too, in terms of like we're playing with the meta of what's happening in the real world. Marvel had to deal with the rights not existing to them not having the rights to the X-Men and the Fantastic Four. DC has to deal with the fact that, like, look, this wasn't popular, we're rebooting, we want to get more people on board next time. And I think it's an interesting way to play with the real world scenarios that are influencing the decision making behind the scenes. And I think that that's kind of an interesting idea. I don't know if they're doing that. That's just my speculation. I also don't know if Doomsday Clock was well enough received that people would like that. And I think, too, it's like the idea... I think the one thing that holds this back is that you don't want to... What's it called? I think that there is a part of Warner Brothers that may not want to touch Watchmen, the movie, or Watchmen, the show. And I would certainly hope Watchmen, the show, is for a different reason. I would hope Watchmen, the show, is because that show is fantastic, and I don't think they want to bring it in to the universe in that way. But, like, I think there's a part of them that doesn't want to touch that, or it doesn't want to touch the movie because they don't want to, like, look, let's just ignore the Snyderverse, like that meme with Don Draper and the guy from Superstore, where it's like they're in the elevator and the guy says, "I feel bad for you," and Don Draper says, "I don't think about you at all." I think that's kind of the mentality that they probably want to approach this with, where it's like they're gonna sit there, they're gonna bitch and moan no matter what you do. Why lead into that and get into the culture war of it all? Like, just, let them do what they're going to do anyway. If they want to, if they want to complain about it, they will. If they don't, whatever, who gives a fuck? It's not our problem. Like, these people who weren't going to watch anyway, why bow to them? But at that point, it's like, why not, touch the things that they hold sacred? I don't know. It's a weird thing, because it's like, I think that to that fan base, Watchmen is beloved, but outside that fan base, if they redeemed it, it could be like, Thor: The Dark World, or in Endgame, or in Deadpool and Wolverine, the return of Chris Evans as Human Torch. Like, that kind of thing is what it could be, and I think it would be interesting to see how that works out from here. But I think that's as good a place as I need to wrap up for today. We will do Alien Earth. I've been very busy lately, so I haven't gotten around to start it yet. And I know it's 3 episodes in. But I will watch Alien Earth. We will talk about Alien Earth. And tonight, we will be talking about Relay, the new movie with Riz Ahmed. And I don't know, I've seen the trailer for it at least once. It's about a relay operator or the relay operators for people with disabilities, so that way they can send messages, but it's protected by HIPAA, so criminals use it to give information. It seemed kind of interesting. It's not a documentary. It's an action thriller, I think. But we'll be talking about that tonight. And until our next episode, have a great rest of your week.